Deep in the heart of the jungle, where towering trees stretch toward the sky and rivers weave through emerald valleys, there lies a hidden village, a place untouched by time, where people live in harmony with nature. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, the distant calls of birds blending with the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. The villagers rise with the first light of dawn, their days unfolding with the rhythm of the earth. Women gather water from the nearby stream, their laughter mixing with the bubbling current, while children chase each other through the fields, their bare feet kicking up soft dust. Men prepare for the day's work, tending to crops, weaving baskets, and crafting tools from wood and stone. Smoke curls lazily from cooking fires, carrying the warm aroma of roasted plantains and spiced stew. Life here is simple but rich, woven with traditions passed down through generations. Every path, every tree, every whisper of the wind holds a story, a connection to the land that has given them everything. The peace of the village was never meant to last forever. It began as a distant sound, a low rumble that carried through the jungle like an approaching storm. At first, the villagers dismissed it as the wind shifting through the trees, the restless movements of the wild. But soon, the earth trembled beneath their feet, and a thick dark cloud rose above the treetops. The birds, usually filling the air with their morning songs, fell silent. Then came the crackling, a sharp, relentless sound that sent a wave of fear through the village. Flames, a fire, fierce and hungry, devouring the jungle in its path. The villagers rushed to gather water, to smother the creeping blaze, but it was too strong, too fast. Smoke stung their eyes, thick and suffocating. The children clung to their mothers, their small faces streaked with fear. The elders called out warnings, guiding the villagers toward the river, the only safe place left. But the fire was not their only threat. In the chaos, the animals of the jungle, panicked and desperate, charged through the trees, fleeing for their lives. Monkeys leaped from branch to branch, shrieking in terror. Deer sprinted through the undergrowth, their eyes wild with fear. Even the mighty elephants trumpeted as they crashed through the trees, searching for escape. And then came a sound that froze the villagers in place. A sharp, agonizing cry, not human, not animal, something deeper, more powerful. A call that sent a shiver through the air. Kanu. From the heart of the burning jungle, the great silverback emerged, his massive form silhouetted against the flames. His dark fur was streaked with ash, his chest rising and falling with deep, steady breaths. His eyes, sharp and knowing, scanned the village, taking in the chaos, the fear. He did not hesitate. With the strength of a force greater than the fire itself, Kanu moved. He tore down burning branches, clearing paths for the villagers to escape. He guided the lost animals toward safety, his mighty arms pushing aside the debris that trapped them. When the flames threatened to spread toward the village huts, he lifted great chunks of earth with his bare hands, smothering the fire before it could reach the homes. The villagers watched in awe, their fear momentarily forgotten. The legend of Kanu was not just a story. He was real, and he was saving them. But the fire was relentless, and time was running out. The villagers had to flee before the flames consumed everything. As they gathered their loved ones and ran toward the river, one child, too small to keep up, tripped and fell. The fire roared closer, the heat pressing in. Before anyone could reach him, a great shadow loomed over the boy. A powerful arm, gentle yet unshakable, scooped him up and carried him to safety. Kanu set the child down beside his mother, his dark eyes lingering for just a moment as if to say, "You are safe now." The villagers reached the river, the cool water a relief against the scorching heat. They turned back, watching as the fire raged, swallowing the trees that had once sheltered them. But amidst the destruction, one figure stood firm. Kanu, his massive chest rising and falling, his gaze fixed on the jungle he had sworn to protect. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the rain came. Heavy, powerful drops poured from the heavens, hissing against the flames, turning smoke into steam. The villagers watched in silence, their hearts pounding, as the fire weakened under the force of the storm. Kanu tilted his head toward the sky, letting the rain wash over him, cleansing the ash from his fur. The village had been spared, but the jungle had changed, and so had Kanu. The rain had doused the flames, but the jungle still bore the scars of the fire. Trees stood charred and broken, their once vibrant leaves reduced to ash. The air, once filled with the rich scent of earth and flowers, now carried the heavy weight of smoke and damp embers. The villagers, though safe by the river, could only watch in silence as their home, their sanctuary, lay in ruins. And then, through the mist and rain, he emerged. Kanu, the mighty silverback, stepped forward from the wreckage, his dark fur slick with water, streaked with soot. His powerful chest heaved, his muscles taut with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with something stronger: determination. He did not stop to rest. He did not hesitate. Even as the jungle stood wounded around him, he moved with purpose. With great, sweeping motions, Kanu cleared fallen branches, pushing away the debris that blocked the paths. He climbed the broken trees, shaking loose, weakened limbs that threatened to fall. The jungle, though battered, was still alive, and he would not let it fall further. The villagers, still shaken by the destruction, watched in awe. Slowly, one by one, they stepped forward. A young boy, the same child Kanu had saved from the flames, was the first to move. He walked cautiously toward the great silverback, his small hands gripping a bundle of fresh leaves. Kanu turned, his deep eyes locking onto the boy's, and for a moment there was only silence. Then, with a slow, measured movement, Kanu reached out and took the offering. He did not eat it right away. He only held it as if understanding the meaning behind the gesture. That single act set everything into motion. The villagers, inspired by the guardian of the jungle, joined him in his efforts. Men and women worked side by side with the great gorilla, rebuilding what had been lost. They gathered stones to reinforce their homes, planted new saplings where trees had fallen, and cleared paths to help the animals return. The children, once afraid, now played in the open fields, their laughter ringing through the air once more, and Kanu remained with them. He stood watch at the edge of the village, his massive form a silent promise that he would always be there. When the jungle called him, he would disappear into its depths, but he would always return. He had been a guardian before, a legend whispered among the villagers. But now, he was something more. He was family. As the sun set over the land, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the village and the jungle breathed as one. The fire had come, bringing destruction, fear, and loss. But it had also revealed something greater, a bond that could never be broken. And at the heart of it all, standing tall beneath the fading light, was Kanu, the gorilla who had saved them all. The village had survived, but survival was not enough. The people knew they could not simply rebuild their homes and forget what had happened. The fire had been a warning, a reminder that their jungle, their home, was fragile. They had always lived with nature, but now they understood that they must also protect it. The elders gathered beneath the great banyan tree, their voices hushed but firm. The village had always honored the jungle, but now they would do more. They would create a sanctuary, a place where the animals could roam without fear, where the trees could grow undisturbed, where fire and hunters would never threaten their way of life again. And at the center of it all, they knew, was Kanu. The people worked together, marking the edges of the jungle that would become sacred ground. They built watchtowers at the borders, not to keep anyone out, but to keep danger away. They planted new trees, their hands pressing seeds into the earth with quiet reverence. Children carried water to nourish the young saplings, their laughter filling the air once more. And Kanu, always watching, always near, moved among them, as if he too understood what they were creating. The bond between the villagers and the gorillas deepened. No longer did the people merely observe them from a distance. Now they walked alongside them, sharing space, sharing trust. Mothers carried their babies past Kanu without fear. Children sat near him, offering him fruits as gifts. The younger gorillas, once cautious of the humans, now played freely in the open fields, their curiosity overcoming their shyness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a young girl sat near Kanu, her small hands tracing patterns in the dirt. She looked up at him, her dark eyes wide with wonder. "You saved us," she whispered. Kanu did not respond. He only watched her, his gaze deep and unreadable. But in the gentle way he remained still, in the way he let the wind move through his silver-streaked fur, she knew he understood. The village had changed, and so had the jungle. It was no longer just a home. It was a promise, a sanctuary where kindness and courage would always triumph over fear. And as the stars blinked to life in the night sky, Kanu stood at the edge of the village, watching over the land he had sworn to protect. The story of Kanu would never be forgotten. The elders spoke of him by the fire, their voices weaving his legend into the fabric of the village's history. Parents told their children of the mighty silverback who had saved them, of his strength, his wisdom, his unwavering courage. And the children listened, wide-eyed, imagining the guardian of the jungle standing tall beneath the moonlight, watching over them even as they slept. But Kanu was not just a legend. He was real. And though the fire had long since faded, his presence remained. Some days he would appear at the edge of the village, his dark eyes scanning the land as if ensuring all was well. Other times, he was just a shadow among the trees, unseen but always there. His bond with the villagers had become unbreakable, an unspoken understanding that neither time nor distance could undo. Seasons passed, and the jungle healed. The trees that had been lost were now replaced by new life, their leaves stretching toward the sky, untouched by flames. The rivers ran clear, the animals returned, and the land thrived once more. The sanctuary the villagers had built flourished, a living testament to the balance between humans and nature. One evening, as the sky turned to gold, an elder stood before the children gathered around the fire. "Do you know why Kanu watches over us?" he asked, his voice calm, steady. The children shook their heads, waiting for his answer. The elder smiled, looking toward the distant jungle, where a great shadow moved among the trees. "Because we watch over him, too." And so the legend of Kanu continued, not as a myth, not as a fading story, but as a truth woven into the heart of the village. A reminder that courage is not just found in strength, but in kindness. That protection is not just given, but shared. That even the mightiest of guardians, in the end, are never truly alone. Deep in the jungle, beneath the endless sky, Kanu stood once more, his silver-streaked fur glowing in the last light of day. He turned toward the village, listening to the laughter, the distant hum of voices carried by the wind. And then, with the quiet certainty of one who knows he is home, he disappeared into the trees, leaving behind a legacy that would never fade. Time moved forward, as it always does. The village thrived, the jungle flourished, and the story of Kanu became more than just a tale. It became a part of who they were. Children grew up hearing his name spoken with reverence, their eyes searching the trees, hoping to catch a glimpse of the great silverback who had once saved them all. Some claimed to have seen him in the early hours of dawn, his massive form moving like a shadow through the mist. Others swore they had heard his deep, steady breaths carried by the wind, a reminder that he was still there, still watching. But no one truly knew where Kanu had gone. As the seasons changed, his visits became less frequent. The villagers no longer saw him at the jungle's edge, no longer felt the weight of his presence in the way they once had. It was as if the guardian of the jungle had finally chosen to disappear, fading into the very land he had protected. And yet, his spirit remained. The sanctuary he had inspired continued to grow, a living tribute to the bond between the villagers and the wild. The people protected the jungle as fiercely as Kanu had protected them, ensuring that no harm would ever come to the land again. They taught their children not just to respect nature, but to understand it, to cherish it, to see it as something more than just trees and rivers, as home. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet, an elder stood before the village, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Do you hear that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The villagers fell silent, listening intently. A deep, distant sound rumbled through the jungle. Not thunder, not the wind. Something older, something eternal. A low, steady beat, the heartbeat of the jungle. The elder smiled, his eyes filled with quiet understanding. "Kanu is still with us," he said, placing a hand over his chest. "Not in the way we expect, but in the way that truly matters." And so, the legend of Kanu lived on, not just in stories, not just in memories, but in the very soul of the jungle itself. In the rustling of the leaves, in the laughter of children, in the quiet strength that bound the village and the wild together. For some, he was a protector. For others, a guardian. But for those who truly understood, he was something greater. He was a part of the land, a part of them. And in the heart of the jungle, where the trees stood tall and the rivers ran free, Kanu remained, forever watching, forever present.